And we're live.
And we're live. Wow. Internet problems and connection problems and audio problems. We finally made it live to the stream. Hello, everybody. Welcome to GaryCon or GaryCon Twitch, whatever we're calling it.
14.
14, yeah. XIV.
14 years old.
Yeah, it has been a hectic week, and we are finally hitting the ground running for the GaryCon Twitch. We're running from Thursday through Sunday, all weekend long, 24 hours for the next couple days, starting now, really.
Jeff, I should have a Chrome browser open that shows Gary. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
As long as you can see chat. Okay.
Oh, there you go. So I'm Matt Everhart, go by Casey Rift, and this is Jimmy Duffy. We're the Wizards of the Couch. And joining us today, we have Jody Black and Clint Black from PEG, Pinnacle Entertainment Group. So welcome, first of all, and thank you very much for being our first guests for the Twitch. Today we wanted to kind of talk about, or the topic of the show is past, present, and future of Pinnacle and Savage Worlds. So with that, Jody, we'll start with you and let you introduce yourself and tell us where you're coming from in the gaming world.
Thank you. So we're happy to be here today. We wish we could be there in person because GaryCon is legendary, of course. But we are coming to you from the wilds of North Carolina instead, and it's a dreary day here. So we'd rather be inside gaming because, of course, always we'd rather be gaming. With Pinnacle Entertainment Group, I am the COO and managing editor. And I have been for, I guess, about 5 or 6 years now. I should go check my LinkedIn profile. That's how I keep track of myself. Before that, I did some editing jobs. And then before that, I was a grant writer and that sort of thing. So I come to this business from a nonprofit background, and you'd be surprised how similar those two things are. But hopefully we are able to prove to you that we're delivering quality product and a fun game system, Fast Furious fun.
Certainly.
And obviously we're doing well because we just keep growing year after year, and the Savage Worlds brand is better than ever. And for that, I have to congratulate and say thank you, honey, because my dear husband, Clint Black, is our Core Rules brand manager. So I'll let you introduce yourself, honey.
I feel like you just did that. Better than I could, really. To be fair, I have been the Savage Worlds Core Rules brand manager for Pinnacle for some time, but after much lobbying and, perhaps a little bit of begging, I convinced Shane Hensley to change my official title to the Rules Guru for Pinnacle Entertainment. And I also work as our community manager, but Core Rules, anything like that, anything that has to integrate through the Core Rules system, those kind of things, that's what I've handled and worked on, which pretty much means most of our products, of course.
Right. The wearer of many hats.
Yes. But Jody and I have been almost since the very beginning with Savage Worlds. We were play testers on the original version that was, the first release was 2003. We're coming up on our 20th anniversary next year. And and
good grief.
Earned really every single one of these white hairs.
That's great.
Before
20
that,
years,
I had
so
done some freelance work for Pinnacle.
Okay. All right. Jimmy's actually getting ready to start. You have already run Deadlands, haven't you?
We ran the Deadlands and on the adventure rule, and then I just did the Kickstarter, so waiting on that product when that comes out. And we run on the Predators Rejects channel also. They're still running East Texas, and that campaign was supposed to be a limited edition, and the group doesn't want us to disband, and so the kids keep doing their thing in college and getting in trouble. So there they go.
Yeah, very big fans. Very big fans.
Are they like a 10th year senior at this point? I mean,
something like that. Yeah. They keep re-enrolling back in college, so they don't have to go to the real world,
Sounds like my college.
But they keep, they keep, expunging the undead and finding some trouble with teachers or whoever it is. But the group is, yeah, they, like I said, it was supposed to be limited run, like 8 shows, and I think they've run to 20s now. So, and they don't want to stop playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to say no.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah.
Super fun, campy. And,
they like East Texas. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, with regards to 20 years, one of the topics we want to talk about was the past of Savage Worlds. What really drove Pinnacle towards creating their own system and, I guess breaking away from, breaking away from the Dungeons and Dragons type rule set?
Clint, that one's all yours.
Well,
I was really the playtester at that time. So Clint was more involved in the nuts and bolts of building the game at that point.
Sure.
Yeah. So originally Pinnacle's first big product was Deadlands: The Weird West in the original classic system. And multiple die types, multiple dice pools for everything, a whole lot going on there. And then in 97, we released The Great Rail Wars, which was a miniatures game regarding the battle between the various rail barons to be the first to get their line all the way to the West Coast and the Old West.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And at that time, this predates me, but I've heard this from Shane enough. Shane created that system, and he thought at the time, wow, this would be a great basis for just a role-playing game, a really fast, quick role-playing game. And at that point, he was like, yeah, I've already got a role-playing game. I'm not going to make another one to compete with myself,
Right, yeah.
And
sure.
But it got into the early years of 2000, and just, to be fair, Pinnacle was, in the great, D20 glut that kind of happened. It was hard to get space for anything else on shelves. And Shane was like, if I'm gonna do that system, I want to be sure and get it out, and get that done, because it had always stuck with him. And so he started working on it. He put out what we still call our free version, the test drive, and that was originally what he put out, and that's what intrigued me. And I contacted him about it, and he said, this is just something he wanted to do, where you could have, you could actually run having hirelings and people and things like that around with you. It's intriguing because, like, one of the early play tests, the setting he used was actually Game of Thrones off the novels, because he loved those novels. Wow. And he wanted to have cases where you could have the player characters, but then you also have other knights or warriors with them, But he wanted to do that. He wanted to get the book out. We got into it. It hit on all cylinders for me, exactly where I was, what I was looking for in a system. We really synced up. And 2003, first book came out, released, I think, at Origins, and prior to Origins. It was at Origins that we were at, where it won the Fan Choice Best RPG that year it came out, which was really special to Shane because it's voted on by the fans,
Right, yeah.
who are there. And, from that point on, as I said, we've just grown, steady, kind of constant growth, and always working to improve what we can on the system.
Yeah, you talk about constant growth. A lot of the new gamers that are coming in to RPGs, these, certainly over the last 5 or 6 years, have largely been drawn initially into the 5e 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Largely, Critical Role has boosted that popularity. A lot of celebrity types have I say come out of the closet because that's what it was for me, but not necessarily come out of the closet for them. But they announced that they play the game, et cetera, et cetera. So role-playing games in general have really surged in the last 5 or 6 years. Do you think? What is your opinion on Savage Worlds in particular? Seems to really be in a boom at the moment. A lot of people converting, a lot more people playing it these days than I recall playing in the past. Are people looking for something a little more involved, I guess, than 5th edition, than their first experience, and they're evolving into a more sophisticated type game, or what are your opinions on that?
I think it's the core rules mentality. Like you've got this one set of rules that you can use for this genre and this genre and this genre and this genre. So it's not just fantasy. So, they come in with D&D and they go, oh, I love D&D. I love Lord of the Rings. I love everything about, fantasy. And a lot of gamers stay there, and that's fine. Like I know gamers who won't play anything but that. And I'm like, go with God, have fun, but then there are plenty of us who just want to be like, yeah, but what if you were in space and had like a pistol that shot bees? You can do that in Savage Worlds. If you wanted to, play in just the Underdark, you could do that in D&D. I'm sure there's rules for that. But what if it's not just the Underdark? What if it's like Journey to the Center of the Earth, kind of pulpy, kind of, action-oriented cinematic? Maybe the cinematic thing is really what's ringing true for our system, because it is that fast, furious, fun mentality. You don't have as many rules that overwhelm you, and therefore you can just kind of adapt it on the fly. For me as a game master, that's what I've really enjoyed about our system. So I feel like that's where they're at, but that's just my interpretation of it. What about you, Clint?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah, I'd agree with all those points. I think one of the other things that has helped us recently, as you talked about, was the release of the Adventure Edition, the most recent version. When we released that, when we worked on that, that was very much a case of Shane and I going through the book with, there's nothing sacred here. What works, what doesn't, what have we, think, and then what did we want to see? And so we're able to put in options that allow for different play styles, even if it's just in the moment. Like one of the things that's in Adventure Edition is quick encounters, which are great to handle when you've got one scene. You just one die roll and then narrate out what the results are, and it's just more open-ended to what you're doing. And we added a lot of different things, or things that had been out and about in different ways, but we got to pull together. So it provides options in the system of, you can certainly, you have your maps and your minis, if you want to do that, and the templates and all those things, if you want to go that route, but you can also have a social conflict. We've got things to cover that kind of stuff. If you want to have a court battle, pull out the social conflict rules and pull that out. So I think we just offered a lot more options and also still stay cinematic, like Jody said, which is popular,
Yeah, right. Yeah, even more so. We were, in fact, just having this.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, plus, if you wanted to do, like, say, a chase, you can do it round by round, just do a combat. Or we've got this option called chase rules. So you can kind of choose what's going to work for your group there. You can say, okay, for my group, it works better to do this round by round, and either they catch you or you get away. Or you can pull out our cards and lay out kind of a thematic idea in your head of where people are in position to one another and resolve it a lot faster, without everybody trying to take their turn and roll the dice and roll the damage. And, so it's like you've got options, I guess the case is. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
What were you going to say?
That is great. And that's a significant difference these days. We were just having this conversation last night about the way that people approach role-playing games in general these days is a lot more thematic and a lot more storytelling than the 70s or 80s and 90s
Murder hobo
style.
Yep.
So that seems like it would fit very well. Our producer's giving thumbs up on the murder hobo style. It looked like there was a lot of comments in chat about exploding dice too being a fan favorite for Savage Worlds. So that's great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
one
I
of the
think
things that we try to do. One of the things we've tried to do was make the mechanics themselves fun, and exploding dice are just fun. It's just great. You roll a 6 on a d6, you keep rolling. And it also means there are cases in Savage Worlds of doesn't matter how good you are, how good you are, somebody can sneak up behind you with a dagger and shank you, and it'll happen. You know?
And kill you.
Right.
Yeah. Another aspect of that we found people, some people question it and then they try it and they're hooked. And I know people who move it to other systems is the initiative system, because we use a deck of cards for initiative, and it gives us a dynamic initiative system where every round initiative changes, but then you've got 2 jokers in it. So whenever the joker comes up, whoever gets it can go whenever they want, gets a bonus to whatever they're doing, including damage and everything. And, if it's the players, all the players get a Benny, a meta mechanic. If it's the GM gets one. So it can really change. It makes initiative itself fun and exciting, where, boom, that joker comes out and suddenly all
bets are off.
Yeah, it's
everything can
uncertainty.
change.
Yeah, what's going to happen?
Right.
Can I brag on you, Clint? Hang on, I gotta share like an in-game story here and make fun of Clint.
Please.
Okay, so he's gonna hang his head in shame, all you Savage Worlds players out there. So you've got your draw deck, and then you've got your discard deck, and they're side by side. So in our last game, Clint got those 2 confused, and round 9, which we hardly ever get to round 9 in Savage Worlds, but round 9, we're like, where are the jokers? We could really use a joker. We're all out of bennies. We're getting our butts handed to us. He was drawing from the discard pile, people. He's made it up to me. It's okay, but yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
We got more than halfway through the deck, and I just looked over and I picked up the one that looked like it had more cards, because that's what I expected, and started dealing again. And just missed that, but that's okay. I bought her a new set of dice. We're all good.
Oh well, hey, problem solved. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What? So it looks like the majority of people in chat are Savage Worlds fans to begin with, but for those that are watching or might watch in the future that don't know a lot about Savage Worlds, what are some of the big differences they might find between 5th edition and Savage Worlds? What are the character creation, for example, or
exploding dice, stuff like that?
Savage Worlds, character creation, there's nothing random to it. When you're doing it, you're picking and choosing what you want, and all traits in Savage Worlds, which are both attributes and skills, are rated by die types from D4 to D12. D4 being the worst, D12 being the best. Doesn't necessarily mean it ends there or begins there, because you can have modifiers to whatever you do. You're rolling that die. You're trying, basically, in most cases, to hit a target number of 4. Okay? So, obviously, much better odds on the D12 than on a D4 for that.
Sure.
Yeah. But you could have a -2 penalty, which gets into our exploding dice. If you roll the D4, roll another 4, roll another 4, you could end up, you add it all together and get with a 14 -2, you still have a 12,
Yeah.
So it's possible to pull this, pretty much anything off. That's kind of the cinematic possibilities that's there. If the GM says it's possible to make a roll, then there's a chance, regardless of penalties or anything. Yeah. The damage is, based off, it could be your strength plus a weapon die based off that added together, or a ranged weapon like shotgun just always does 3d6 damage added together. But damage also aces. So you can, roll a whole bunch of damage, just with a dagger and kill somebody. We have options for setting rules in the book.
I was just saying, somebody in chat still mentioned that even a first level goblin is still dangerous or potentially dangerous to a legendary character. You never safe thanks to the dice.
Yeah, we played in a campaign where we reached legendary rank, and because we got cocky, what was supposed to be just an encounter to slow our characters down almost wiped us out. Because we split up, we weren't supporting each other, we just thought we were everything. My character got incapacitated more at legendary than he did the rest of his career.
Is that right?
Just being,
yeah.
But
so, no, go ahead, Clint.
I was
Sorry,
just going to say
you first.
Yeah. Normally, if you're rolling for extras, as we call them, the NPCs that are kind of background NPCs, you're just rolling that one dice. But player characters and what we call wild cards, the big name characters, the player characters, the big villains, they roll that die and they roll a d6 and they take the higher of the two. So there's a curve of potential success there. And then the other aspect that we have is every 4 points over the target number that you hit is a raise. And that turns your success into an extraordinary success.
Gotcha.
So that's the basics.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. Bennies. I appreciate that. And bennies.
So, bennies. So we do. Yep, the meta mechanic. That's also something that I keep hearing about people using in other game systems. In fact, our daughter's D&D DM is using bennies in her game. And I'm like, okay.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, so my question has been, we've got about 6 to 8 maybe different systems out there under Savage Worlds. Deadlands, East Texas, Eberron. What else is out there? What are the other ones? Because my question is looking at all them, what are the processes to try to make each one unique? Because you have like your boons, your hindrances, and you can change those up based on the system you're playing. But what else do y'all kind of look at to give each one its little flair? Or how hard is that to develop that?
Well, first of all, we call those just a nomenclature thing, but we call those settings because you only need the one core rule book. That's the only system we're talking about. Yep. And then when you buy the setting book, you've got like maybe this much extra rules and this much extra content for the world and, adventures for the game master and that sort of thing. So we have a lot of settings and everything from space with the last parsec. We have licensed settings. Also, speaking of space, like Flash Gordon. We have Victorian horror with Rippers. We have Deadlands, of course, the Weird West, which is our flagship product. Let's see here. We have Rifts for Savage Worlds. We have Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. Oh my gosh. If I sat here and named them all, but I tell you what, if you go to our website and you click on you'll see at the top banner, it says, a few of the main settings that we've come out with recently. And then at the side, it says more settings. If you click on that, you will come to a page that is nothing but different settings. And Eberron is actually a fan product that's been specially licensed to one of our ACE licensees. So we have more than 100 companies that are licensing our products to build more settings for you. Wow. So if you can think
apologize.
of it,
I was way low.
Okay.
I just got fired. All righty. Well, nice seeing y'all.
Yeah.
No, it's okay if you weren't aware of that, because it is mind blowing that just how much content is out there. And then there's plenty of free content too from the fans. Just if you think of it, if you dream it, and you just want to put it out there for free, you don't need permission from us at all. Just put our logo and disclaimer on there, publish it, have fun.
Yeah. We also have what we call the swag license through Drive-Thru RPG, which is just a click-through license. It's only releasing there. It doesn't require approval from Pinnacle. You just have to agree to the license we have. And when we did that license, there's a template that a lot of people use. We actually made a bunch of changes to that template. We increased the percentage that the creator gets. We ensured that in the license, the creator owns all the rights to their product. Whatever they make, if somebody wants to use it, they need their permission. And like I said, so there's stuff there too that's available. And I will put out that there's one other setting my wife could have mentioned called Necessary Evil, which is about where you get to play supervillains after the Earth is invaded by aliens who kill all the superheroes, and you become the resistance fighting against them. That was the first big product I did for Savage Worlds.
Looks like I'll be buying you some dice.
Yeah. And we've gone on to actually do a prequel to that, or some kind, sort of. Necessary Evil Breakout, which is kind of a combination of that with Escape from New York, where the aliens have made the island of Manhattan into a prison, and you're more street level, like Spider-Man level villains, more than like Avengers level villains who are trying to break out and dealing with all the different factions in New York and everything like that.
That sounds
we
sounds
just
super
released
fun.
we just released our Superpowers companion for Suede for handling characters with superpowers not that long ago. So
Actually, it's available in PDF right now. It's not available in print quite yet, but I can talk about our production schedule later. Speaking of swag, if you are an attendee at Gary Con and have the swag bag, you have access to a free PDF on our website. The link is in your swag bag, and there's a coupon code in there for you to use as well. And that gives you access to a fantasy adventure for Savage Worlds. So I hope that you will check it out and enjoy that, courtesy of Pinnacle Entertainment Group. Enjoy the swag, y'all.
Absolutely. That's a treasure. What's it? Greatest treasure.
The greatest
is the. Yep. Yeah. So that'll be for all of our ethereal attendees. If you have a badge, a ethereal or astral or higher badge, you'll get that in your swag bag. So thank you very much for the wonderful contribution. We really appreciate that. I had a question and it escaped me. What you got?
We'll let her talk about the schedule. Let's talk about what's new, what's coming up.
Well, the other thing Jimmy was asking about was how do we make those settings feel different? And in Suede, we actually have a section in the core rules that we call setting rules. And every setting has its setting rules that make it feel different, to give it a different feel. That's what we call it, because just one generic system can cover a lot of different settings like that unless you adapt the rules to give you the feel. So we tried to make Savage Worlds to where it's adaptable. One of our settings is Deadlands Noir, set in the 30s to 50s. We actually cover a lot of different noir styles during that time. And we have a gritty damage rule where every time a character takes a wound, you actually roll for an injury. Like, did you get shot in the leg? Have you reduced your pace? Did you normally those things cinematically, we don't worry about where you got shot until your character's actually incapacitated. In gritty, you might have taken a bullet shot to the shoulder and now you've lost your primary arm. So that's one way. I mean, we have, heroes never die for things like Flash Gordon. If you're playing real pulp adventures, it's like, even, and as we say in there, that also means villains never die. They may fall down a crevice into a lava pit, but somehow they got saved.
Somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow. So that is the way we try to make those things. Jimmy talked about earlier, like in East Texas University, some of the setting rules are the player characters actually have to roll for their exams at the end of each semester.
Right.
They're students. They're going to school. They have to roll for their exams. And Deadlands, it's all about fear in Deadlands. So there's a setting rule for fear levels, and what that does, around you. So that's the key, really at the heart of Savage Worlds, to make it work for so many different settings.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thank you.
There I go.
Okay, we got probably about 10 minutes or so left. You want to go into the production schedule and the future and all that?
What's coming up?
What's coming up?
I told you we'd talk your ears off. I was like, really?
Oh,
only
no,
10 minutes left?
Okay. Yeah, 13.
Okay,
13.
So you mentioned the Superpowers Companion. That is out in PDF. You can still pledge for it or pre-order it on our website through our Gamechanger platform. And we hope to ship that out in July. It's also coming to us from the printers with Savage Rifts, Atlantis, and the Demon Seas. So those two projects will probably be shipping at the same time that month in July. And then it'll be in retail the month after that. So August, Gen Con. Before that, Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. I'm sorry, y'all. It's COVID. It's been hell trying to get a shipping container. I know you've heard all that.
Oh my God.
But we are targeting shipping that to backers in May. So the good news is, for now, I'm just going to shut up now. Let's see here. We have our Appalachian Horror, Appalachian Apocalypse Holler. If you have not heard of Holler and Appalachian Apocalypse, y'all, it is the best. I'm sorry. I'm partial to it because we're practically in the holler here in the mountains of North Carolina. So it's near and dear to my heart. And it is at the printers right now. So we don't have a solid ship date on that, but we should be shipping. We should be shipping that only with a small delay of about a month or two. We'll update the backers when we get that. What's next for us is we're having Hell on the High Plains moved from Kickstarter, which just ended on Kickstarter about a month ago. Yes, thank you, Jimmy, for backing that. And that actually, the playtest PDF went out to backers 2 days ago. So if you didn't see the Kickstarter update and did not see the email on that, please go look for it. That is only for the Kickstarter backers. Next, we'll open it up on our website, the Gamechanger Platform, so that you can pledge there. And then you can also add anything you want from our website to your order. So that's one of the cool things we love about our Gamechanger platform. And next on Gamechanger, we plan to launch on April 5th, the Fantasy Companion. So we have Savage Worlds core rules. Then we have optional rules with the Superpowers Companion, optional rules for the Fantasy Companion. There are still old copies out for Superpowers Companion and Horror Companion. We've talked about other stuff, and that's also in the pipeline. But that is what's coming up next.
Great. No,
yes.
that's
What
awesome.
was the question?
Yeah. Thank you for the. Thanks for the rundown. That's great. You said so. I hadn't heard of the Appalachian Holler. What's the rundown on that? Just real quick.
So Holler, I'm going to take this one because my kinfolk are from the Holler. They really are.
Yes, they are.
Here in North Carolina. Yeah, my dad's side of the family are from up in the Appalachians, where this is based. And it is, the Holler is a self-contained location, basically.
Okay.
It's kind of been cut off from the world a little bit. To use a reference, most people think Ravenloft. But what's happened is the big boys have come into the holler, and they have taken over timber and mining, and they're cutting things down, and they're digging into the earth, and it's releasing things. And it is very much a thing of, you are the downtrodden people, that have been walked over. It really deals with, those people at the lowest rungs of society, trying to fight against the ones who have all the money and all the power, and 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 it's just a blast of our archetypes that we have options to play. First, Tim Early, who wrote it, is literally like a professor of Appalachian history. So yeah. So he covered a lot of stuff even I didn't know about. But we have the Moonshiner. And our Moonshiners are like alchemists. Their moonshine can have various special properties.
Oh, very nice.
It could be explosive, or it can give you a boost when you really need it, We have our Gouger, and she's a really cool character. Very much, yes, the bare knuckle fights that they would have. If you think Every Which Way But Loose, Any Which Way You Can, that happened a lot up there for entertainment. But the deal was, if you won, you got to mark your foe, and in some cases they would literally gouge an eye out to mark them. It was brutal.
Yeah.
But we've got the granny woman who knows the folk magic, but it deals a lot with both the cryptids that you would know of the mountains, but then also the Fae, because it's very close to both of those are the origins. I mean, a lot of people talk about the way that folks up in the Appalachians talk, or we're going to sit down for victuals and we're going to do this and that, but realistically, their way of speech goes back to old Europe. They just never lost certain words that transitioned out in the rest of society, like victuals, which was used commonly. So a lot of that that old knowledge is what's kind of covered in this. So knowing the folk magic of how to do certain things, and it's also got the banjo players, the guys who did bluegrass, the bluegrass musicians, which very much were like the original kind of rebellious kind of music,
And Jimmy, if your group Jimmy, if your group loves East Texas University, I think they'd love Holler, because it's horror. Don't get me wrong, but you can still have some of those lighthearted moments where you lean into stereotypes, like you do with frat boys and campus hijinks, right? But then you can also, at the very core of it, it is scary, and you are fighting for your lives. And you can't escape. The misty veil is keeping you from leaving this holler, and you're trying to escape the textile mills or the coal mines. And yeah, it's scary good. And yeah, you can have some fun.
I'm gonna let one person know about it, then we'll look into it then and have them change, maybe do a limited run on it and see what they think and bring them to the channel. Yeah,
that sounds right up my alley. I think that sounds amazing. Right. That sounds fantastic. What's the genre roughly? So it looks like somebody in the chat said 1930s. Is that, or is it
roughly? Yeah. Most of the characters don't have access to the highest technology in the area, but the big boys do. So they have working like 1930s era, 40s ish trucks, cars, and things like that. Those do exist. Most of the players don't have them though.
That sounds like a ton of fun. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's
what else? What else we got on the plate?
Well, I mean, I think the thing that everybody wants to know more about, Clint, is the fantasy companion. So we've only teased that a little bit about saying that there will be new edges and stuff in the new book, but everybody's expecting that. So, Clint, do you have anything that you want to talk about with this fantasy companion? Oh, and do you
So,
guys want to show off some art? I think
Yeah.
we had some art or something to show off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me take
Yep.
off. It's a pleasure chatting with y'all. I'm gonna go man the booth.
Thank you,
okay.
Jimmy.
Yeah, so one of the questions that we get most often about the Fantasy Companion is, what is it going to do for me if I've already got Pathfinder for Savage Worlds? Which is obviously a fantasy setting and covers a lot of, you know, those tropes. But Pathfinder for Savage Worlds is very written for the Galarian setting that Pathfinder created and to do their adventure paths and, you know, to give that feel. But there's so many variations of fantasy out there, from low fantasy to sword and sorcery, and that's what the Fantasy Companion tries to do, is give the tools for the GM to create, kind of like Jimmy was saying, the setting rules and what they need to, you know, create the setting they want to tell, and just make it flexible enough to do whatever. Um, One of the things that we have done is we've got some additions to our um, kind of ancestry creation rules that we have, which we're looking at ancestries because some fantasy settings you have all human, and it's all based off cultures, like the horse lords or the, you know, the seafarers and things like that. So that could easily be an ancestry as opposed to just elf or dwarf or things of that nature. But one of the things we did add to this that we have not done yet is the option for diminutive, where you can actually create like fairies or mouselings,
yeah.
very tiny creatures that are potentially available. We have not done that yet, and I will honestly say I wasn't sure that we'd be able to, but we spent a lot of time and effort into it to make this work out because,
Oh, that
you
sounds
know,
great. Yeah, that sounds so fun. Well,
yeah.
believe it or not, we are running right up against our time right now. So, Jody and Clint, I really appreciate your time. I know Shane wanted to be here initially, but he had some other things come up that prevented him from being on today. But certainly appreciate the insight into Savage Worlds and Pinnacle and everything that's coming out. We're really looking forward to it. One thing we didn't really talk about was that I think you wanted to hit on was the Gamechanger. Did you want to talk about what that is real quick?
Sure. Just real quick, the Gamechanger Platform is what we're calling our in-house crowdfunding platform. So you can come to our site. You can pledge for things like, for example, Holler is on there now. If you missed it on Kickstarter, you can go to our site. You can pledge for it or pre-order it. It depends on what phase you're at and in that process. But it's open for basically late backers at one point, and then it moves over to the pre-order section, but you still get the same deal on shipping as the Kickstarter backers. But when it's a game changer from start to finish, like the Superpowers Companion or the Fantasy Companion, then you get to, you get to pledge on our site. You check out on our site. You get the rewards on our site. It's the same thing as what you're doing just on Kickstarter, but you're doing on our site. So not Indiegogo, not Game on Tabletop, not Kickstarter. Us. We're getting all of your money. We're not having to pay anything to any of those other platforms. And so we're actually developing this as a WordPress plugin for WooCommerce. So if you are an RPG creator who has a WordPress website, just send us an email. Let us know that you're interested. We're not ready for selling it yet. We're still working out the kinks of delivering it, still packaging and working out things, but it should be ready soon. I'd say no later than the end of the summer. And it's huge, y'all. Everything on your site becomes an add-on for your backers instead of you having to go to a pledge manager, instead of you having to add all those things separately. Yeah, we were at the point where we needed that because we have more than 1,000 SKUs in our warehouse. So
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm interested.
yeah.
I run a WooCommerce store. I'm definitely interested in it when it does come out. So take that as one, at least one.
Okay.
Okay, Jody and Clint, thank you very much for tuning in and talking with us today. We really appreciate it. We coming up next at GaryCon, Ethereal GaryCon, we have our second game of the day, Cyberpunk Red, with Game Master Eric Frankhouse. We will be back in about 15 minutes, and we'll see you then. Bye, everybody.